What's going on, everybody? This is Catfish and Ice, episode 186, bonus edition, because we got some pretty major news breaking across the Smashville landscape. We saw it coming. It finally happened. John Hynes has been relieved of his duties as head coach of the Nashville Predators, and the new era of Nashville Predators hockey seems to continue. We've got a new general manager coming in, Barry Trotz. We've got now a new head coach. We've got all these young players coming in. And now, of course, it finally happens. I would say that the majority of Nashville Predators fans right now are having a party. They're rejoicing. They're jumping around in the streets doing cartwheels because they just weren't big fans of John Hynes. It was very, very clear of that. So it finally happens. I've been saying this for the past couple of weeks. Seemed kind of like it had to happen. It was going to happen. The fact that Barry Trotz had not confirmed with any kind of conviction that John Hynes was coming back to his final year of his contract. John Hynes had one more year left on his contract with the Nashville Predators as head coach. And the fact that a new GM would not say with any confirmation that you're coming back for 2023-24 seemed like it was without a doubt going to happen. It was a matter of when, not if. And so here we are. It was first reported by Kevin Weeks. Love that dude because I love the way he breaks news. You never know where Kevin Weeks is going to be. He's always got the most random background. I was freaked out when I first came across this on Twitter. I wake up like most of us do. You grab the phone, you look up when you're laying in bed, and you're like, what's going on here? And I had to make sure it wasn't a burner account. That's a lot of that stuff's going on these days on Twitter. A lot of fake burner account, not burner accounts, I guess I should say, just fake accounts because of the whole Twitter checkmark thing that's going on right now. But had to make sure that it was a real tweet. But it really helped that Kevin Weeks actually in the tweet is filming himself. I know that's Kevin Weeks, even though I can only see the top of his head. But that was the first tweet I came across. He was the one that broke the news, as far as I understand, midday on Tuesday, that John Hynes is out as head coach of the Nashville Predators after 4 seasons. And Andrew Brunette, who scored the first goal in Nashville Predators history. So there's an interesting nugget for you that's circulating, and it's pretty cool. So the first head coach of the Nashville Predators hires the fourth head coach of the franchise who scored the first goal in franchise history. Are you keeping up here? That's where we're at here. Also, full circle, it all comes around. Andrew Brunette was an assistant head coach this past season for the New Jersey Devils. Of course, we all know where John Hynes came from. He came from the New Jersey Devils as the head coach. So, yeah, everything comes full circle. We're all here and there. This is, again, Catfish and Ice bonus edition, episode 186. Thank you to the YouTube subscribers who are watching right now. Please hit subscribe below if you're watching. Comment on the stream. I love it. Also follow on Catfish and Ice podcast on Twitter at Catfish Ice. We're on Facebook as well. Follow me at Chad_Minton. I love talking hockey with all the readers and viewers. It's what gets me through every day because I love it. Love talking hockey. Even the people who disagree with me, let's go. Let's do it. Let's talk that hockey. So we got a lot to get into here on this bonus edition in regards to John Hynes being let go. First of all, I want to share with this. I went to the March 2nd Preds-Panthers game right before the trade deadline this past year, and I'm drinking out of the Panthers cup. Yeah, I got it at the stadium. Andrew Brunette, of course, was the interim head coach of the Panthers in 21-22. Got 51 wins for that team after he took over. that's a season for the Panthers that could have gone way off the rails, and they ended up winning the President's Trophy. That's not an easy accomplishment as an interim head coach. He had never been a head coach in this league. He's a former player. As I said, scored the first goal in Preds franchise history. Over 1,000 NHL games. Over 700 career NHL points. I feel like he's going to connect with this younger-ish locker room that's coming into the Predators franchise. As we know, a lot of these younger players figure to play major minutes as they did down the stretch of this past season. They got the Predators 3 points within the Winnipeg Jets to maybe get in the playoffs for the ninth straight year. It didn't happen. No one was really upset about that. It was fun to watch, but we understood it. Injuries to the veteran core. All these things happen. It's understood. It's fine. But we all figured this is going to happen here. This is going to happen. It's all a matter of getting the right head coach, though. And I'm about to get into that. Again, we're brought to you by DraftKings, promo code THPN. Raycon, 15% off store-wide deal right now for Raycon wireless earbuds with our promo code THPN right at the bottom of the screen there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that. Please go take advantage of those offers. All right, so let me start with this. We were all asking ourselves, how will Barry Trotz approach his first offseason as GM? He's not officially there. They say it's July, but he's basically getting consultation from David Poyle, but he is making a lot of decisions right now. So my thing about how this all worked out, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, he had to act swiftly here. We can't string this along anymore. We see where it's going. We know that John Hynes is not coming back in 2023-24. So what are we waiting on? I speculated, they're waiting on the Milwaukee Admirals, who are in the Calder Cup playoffs right now. They're still alive. They're in the Western Conference Finals right now. They won a game recently, so they're still hanging around. But are we waiting for Carl Taylor to get the promotion? We were wondering about that. We were wondering why is the Predators front office waiting to make the inevitable decision to move on from John Hynes. And we kept waiting and speculating. We've done it in previous episodes recently on Catfish on Ice that you should go listen to. The writing was definitely on the wall. And so I threw out a question today on Twitter, and I look at it this way. How patient are you going to be with Andrew Brunette? I asked this to Preds fans, also listening right now and watching. 1 being, don't have your mail sent here. And 10 being, here's a nice 5-bedroom house, estate in Franklin, one of the most beautiful parts of Nashville. Already getting a lot of really good responses in here. I'm going to share some of them. Friend of the show, Landry, says he's here because Trotz wants to influence coaching. Win or find another coach. Well, here's my thing on that. John Hynes went 134, 95, and 18 as head coach of the Nashville Predators. Doesn't seem that bad. Not great, but not horrible. He improved significantly on his point percentage from his days coaching the New Jersey Devils, which was over 5 seasons. .579 point percentage as head coach with the Predators, up from a .487 with the New Jersey Devils. So he did actually improve in that area as head coach of the Predators. You can look at those Devils teams he coached. He didn't have a lot of talent. He had much more talent to work with on this Predators team. You can also say, devil's advocate here, that, well, how is this fair to John Hynes? I mean, think about all the injuries that occurred this past season. I mean, one veteran injury after another. When you talk about Forsberg going out in February, Ryan McDonough was out for a while. Alex Carrier, one of your bright young defensemen that you're leaning on heavily to give you some offense, he was out, missed the whole end of the season. You're talking about Yusuf Parson, your young rookie phenom who was hanging around. He's out for a while. Matt Duchene ends up going down late in the season. Roman Yossi ends up going down late in the season. You're basically down to an AHL roster in the last 3 weeks or so, whatever you want to call it. And somehow they still had a chance. Game 80, the Predators could have still made the playoffs. Now, you can say, well, that was because UC Saros and not because of John Hynes. And I can't necessarily push back on that too hard, but how much of John Hynes factored into the Predators making this really valiant effort to still try to make the playoffs? I mean, I think that locker room did rally around John Hynes a lot. I think he's a good players coach, but in the end, it's a results-oriented business. That's what it comes down to. And I think that's why he was let go. It's not always fair. It's not always right. There's a lot. I mean, I think the front office probably saw what the fans were saying. You got a new general manager coming in, and Barry Trotz wants his coach. He wants his person, whoever it might be. And so that's why I say that the time was now if you're going to do it. You had to do it. You couldn't let this stretch on. Andrew Brunette was one of the top head coaching candidates in the head coaching circles that are swirling around there in this offseason. The Flames, the Rangers are in search for head coaches and whatnot. By the way, it's been reported that the New York Rangers might be in on John Hynes. Didn't see that coming. But yeah, so John Hynes will be fine. He'll land on his feet. We know how this league works. Former head coaches land somewhere else eventually. So that's where that's at with Hynes and possibly the New York Rangers. We'll see what happens with that. But mostly people are saying this is a really good hire for the Predators. Looking back at John Hynes' coaching tenure, this is such a different vibe than the last time the Predators went through a head coaching change, which was early 2020 before the pandemic shut down the season. It was ugly. It was near rock bottom for the Nashville Predators with Peter Laviolette as head coach. You want to talk about a team that you couldn't figure out why they were performing the way they did. There was your answer. We couldn't figure it out. The locker room seemed like it was a mess and disconnected. And you get a mid-season coaching change. Peter Laviolette, the coach who took the Predators to their only Stanley Cup final in 2017, is fired. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. That was weird at the time. It was strange. It was a horrible feeling if you're a Predators fan. And then you're thinking they're going to do an interim head coaching tag. They're going to get through the rest of the season, and we'll see what happens in the offseason. We'll see who they find. But no, that's not what happened. They rather quickly brought on John Hynes. And at the time, it was a very uninspired hire for the Predators to replace Laviolette. I will say that John Hynes didn't get a fair shake. He comes in 2020. The season gets shut down out of nowhere. No one could have predicted it. You're off all summer, not knowing what's going to happen. And then the way it breaks down is you have to play in a Stanley Cup qualifier against the Arizona Coyotes. And that was a horrible showing by this Predators team. It was awful. Hard to watch. They get credit for a postseason appearance, but we're not going to really call it that. I mean, in the record books it is, but it was awful. It felt like they missed the playoffs that year. That was just a horrible experience for the Nashville Predators in the bubble that year. And the Coyotes knock them out. That's our first taste of John Hynes. And then you go into the following season and you get all these career years, going down the stretch here. You get all these career years eventually from Matt Duchene, from Philip Forsberg. UC Saros gets a Vezina nomination. All these things happen and you're thinking, oh, okay. And even then, still, this team is struggling. So you go to the playoffs a couple years under John Hynes. You go in 6 against the Carolina Hurricanes, a team that was heavily favored. You win 2 games at home in overtime in dramatic fashion, and then you lose in 6. Okay. It is what it is. It sucked, but I actually think that was a pretty positive year overall for the Predators. The following year, this past season, the Predators again make the playoffs narrowly, and you get the Colorado Avalanche, and you get swept. You don't have UC Saros in net. Your goaltending gets absolutely obliterated with David Riddick and Connor Ingram in net. How much is that John Hynes' fault? Well, again, I'll circle back to this. It's a result-oriented league, fair or not, that it is what it is. So let me go back to this Twitter question about Andrew Brunette real quick. How patient are you going to be with Andrew Brunette? It ties in because people were not very patient with John Hynes. Let's be honest here for a second. They weren't. How patient are you going to be with Andrew Brunette? 1 being, don't have your mail sent here. 10 being, here's a nice 5-bedroom estate in Franklin. Hunter Welcher says, I think it depends on what Trotz does. If we go young, I think he gets a lot more leash than if we immediately go for it again. That is a very, very valid point from Hunter on Twitter. Thank you for that response. I agree with that totally. It really has a lot of variables here because we don't know what's going to happen. First of all, in free agency, the Predators do have some cap room. They don't have a ton, but Trotz can definitely go out and shop for a player or two on the free agency market if he wants to. We've talked about it a little bit on this show. We're going to get into it a lot more later in this offseason on other episodes of Catfish and Ice, but he has some money to spend. So that does predicate a lot on what's going to happen, and bringing in a new head coach definitely adds a wrinkle to that on how are the Predators going to approach free agency. Is Trotz just going to let it all play out, let the young kids play like everyone wants? Or is he going to go out there and get himself a veteran? I will say, and I've said this before, I'm very underwhelmed by the free agency market this year. I really am. But there are a handful of players that I could maybe make a case for. Go listen to previous episodes to hear my thoughts on that. I've also written about it on predlines.com. You can go check it out. I'm not going to get into that right now, but that's a good comment there from Hunter. Christina says a 9. So very, very confident in Andrew Brunette there. Barney Fife Bloodhound on Twitter says about an 8.5. He has some good young pieces, house money with all these draft picks, and a clearly supportive front office. If he doesn't have cooking in year 3, I'm out. Ooh, going way into the future a little bit here. So year 3, if this team is still where they're at now, like flirting with the playoff bubble every year, a tweener, as I call them, don't know where they're at, yeah, that could be a problem. I mean, obviously, we don't know what kind of contract Andrew Brunette's going to get, how many years or whatever, but year 3 is fair. If you give him 2 years to shape what he wants to shape here, that's fair. Year 3 is totally fair to be expecting more. So we'll see. Chris on Twitter says, so excited to see them not try to retread a coach. I was hoping Carl Taylor to be moved up. I'm excited, though. So I brought that up earlier. Carl Taylor, who has done wonders with the Milwaukee Admirals, the AHL affiliate of the Predators. A lot of these same players who played heavy minutes for the Preds down the stretch are now playing in the Calder Cup playoffs. So a lot of people, including myself, have said, well, that would be an easy transition for Carl Taylor to let's just move you up. Businesses and companies do that all the time. Internal promotions, right? So a lot of people thought that could happen. Carl Taylor can get his first gig in the NHL and coach the same players he's already coached in the AHL and develop them. That seemed to make sense, but as we actually know now, it's not going to happen necessarily. Carl Taylor eventually, most likely, is going to get an NHL opportunity somewhere. Maybe it starts off as an assistant coach. You got to climb that ladder, most likely. I cannot see Carl Taylor being head coach of the Admirals for very much longer. He's going to get a call somewhere from the NHL. It might not be a head coaching gig, but he's going to get a call somewhere. And he has to do what's best for him to move up the ladder in the coaching hockey circles. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Carl Taylor there. But good point there. Another comment I got here is Tony Bruno says a 7. So a lot of people that I'm getting comments on seem pretty confident in Brunette. Brian the Gamer on Twitter says, I'm going to say about a 7 or an 8. After about 2 to 3 years, if we are still stuck in the middle or if we somehow get worse, then I might have to start giving up on the guy. We have to show some sort of improvement as early as this upcoming season. I have high hopes, though. So I'm getting this 2 to 3 year window on Andrew Brunette, which is fair. That means, okay, what do we expect for this next season here, 2023-24? If we have a new head coach in Andrew Brunette, are we going to be patient? If the Predators miss the playoffs again, are we going to be okay with that? I think we should be. You got to give a guy time. When it comes to Andrew Brunette, he's never had the full-time gig as an NHL head coach. He had the interim tag for much of that season, 2021-22, with the Panthers. They ended up winning the President's Trophy. They lose in the second round in a sweep to the Tampa Bay Lightning, a very good team. So take that for what you will. Brunette figures to be a complete flip from Hynes' system, which is that's what has a lot of fans really excited right now. We know that Trotz said in one of his press conferences earlier when he first took over that he wants this team to get faster, more speed, a blend of young and veteran talent, which this roster currently does have. So you bring in Andrew Brunette, he's a former player. You expect him to be able to connect with the younger and veteran players in this locker room, a player's coach. You expect that. I'm going to say this with a question mark, but he is a power play guru. He's been brought into situations to fix power plays. Specifically with the Devils, Devils were a 13th ranked power play this past year. Not great, but not horrible. A lot of Devils fans I've come across on the social media airwaves today they saw it coming, but they're a little upset they're losing him. So you'll see how that goes. Yeah, so that's where we're at with it right now. Brunette comes in. That's going to be the big barometer that we're going to be looking at in the first season under Andrew Brunette as head coach of the Nashville Predators, the 4th head coach in this franchise's history. How quickly and how good does the power play look? And how good does the offense look? The Predators were 27th on the power play last year. They were near the bottom in goals per game as well. We got to get rid of these days where UC Saros has to be near perfect to hope for a win. I'm so sick of it. I'm so over it. I know UC Saros is great. I know he's going to win us a lot of games, but it can't always be about him. It has to be, you know what, Saros had an off day, but we connected a couple times on the power play. We put up 4 or 5 goals. We excelled on special teams, and we still won. That's where this team has to get under Andrew Brunette. That's the barometer. We know Saros is going to be great. You look at the defensive core right now, it seems pretty set. Roman Josi will be back. You got Ryan McDonough. Alex Carrier is an RFA this offseason, but you fully expect the Predators to re-sign him. You got Tyson Barrie, who figures to be a big part of the power play. And then you got Jeremy Lauzon. And then we'll see how it fills out from there. You got some younger players who are going to be vying for that 6th spot. You got Dante Fabro, who you would expect to be in there as well. So you got your 6 defensemen set, most likely. And then you've got some younger players who are going to try to work their way in. The forward core also looks pretty set. I've been pretty adamant that Ryan Johansson needs to be trade bait. If you can find somebody to trade him to, then you trade him in, preferably on draft day. Give me a draft pick. I'm good with it. Shed the cap. We'll even eat some of that cap. We'll eat half of it. I'm okay with it. I don't see where you put Ryan Johansson in this lineup. Ryan Johansson in this lineup just makes things more complicated. I don't know where all the puzzle pieces go if Ryan Johansson is in this lineup. But we'll see. Trot says he has to have the best offseason he could ever have. So I don't know. We'll see. That's interesting in and of itself. That's a major story to follow for Predators fans is Ryan Johansson's offseason. So we'll see how that goes. But I applaud Trot's moving swiftly, doing what he has to do. Fourth head coach in this team's history. So that is pretty impressive in itself because Trot's laid the foundation. He was head coach for a long time. Even when he was let go, it was more of a mutual thing. The team missed the playoffs. It kind of felt like it ran its course, and you moved on. Peter Laviolette comes in. But Trotz laid the foundation of this franchise. He did. The early days, it was all blue collar. It was all like just figure out ways to win somehow, even if it's 2-1, whatever. And it feels like it's kind of gone back to that. That's kind of how the Predators have had to win lately. And that doesn't mesh well with today's NHL. You got to be able to put goals on the board. You got to be able to move fast. You got to be able to skate fast. You got to excel on the power play. That just hasn't happened under Hynes. And so I think that's why the move is happening. So it's a good time for this to happen in this offseason. It's before the draft. The Predators are hosting the draft at the end of June. So you got a new head coach, a new GM. You got a younger core of talent coming in. So it's a new era of hockey for the Predators. And the fans are bullish about it right now. And they should be. It's exciting. But with that comes some reservations. You got to be ready. You got to be in it for the long haul. I know a lot of those fans out there have been following this team since 1998. So I'm not even calling you out on this. I know you're in it for the long haul. But just keep your expectations a little tempered for the first year under Andrew Brunette. I'm not saying this team's not going to compete for the playoffs. I think they will. They're going to be a mid-tier team like they've been for a long time. The question is those measurables there. Power play. Are you going to show some improvement in your scoring? All these things. You never know what kind of injuries are going to happen and whatnot. But can this team at least show a little bit of improvement in certain key areas? They may or may not make the playoffs next year. We'll see. But you got to see this talent continue to grow, this younger talent, of course. You got to see what's going to happen with some trades. And, of course, a lot still has to happen. You can't really say one way or the other what's going to happen with Andrew Brunette's first season as head coach of the Predators. There's no way to know. There's so many variables involved. But thank you for watching on YouTube for this bonus segment of episode 186 of Catfish and Ice. The full episode we are going to record live tomorrow, but this is going to be uploaded to our main episode on all the podcast platforms. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube right now, or if you're subscribing, I'm going to share it on Twitter as well, then you've got an early look at it. But it's going to be part of the main episode. My co-host, Rich Howe, will be joining me for a full episode on this and some other hockey topics, including the Stanley Cup Final, which is set. Florida Panthers versus the Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights avoided a scare. The Dallas Stars reared up 2 games in a row to make it 3-2, but the Golden Knights come out and romp them 6-0 in Game 6 to avoid an ugly Game 7, which would have been scary for Vegas Golden Knights fans. So they do the business there. It's Golden Knights versus the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Final. We'll break that down. Thank you for watching this bonus segment of Catfish and Ice, part of episode 186, brought to you by DraftKings and Raycon with our promo codes THPN for exclusive offers. And also, we're part of our family, the Hockey Podcast Network. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this bonus segment on YouTube. Please hit subscribe below, and thank you for watching.